Good morning. This is Daybreak on KWOR. I'm Tony DeMars. Harriet Hageman serves as the U.S. Representative for Wyoming's at-large congressional district since 2023. She is a member of the Republican Party. Hageman is a Wyoming native, holds bachelor's and law degrees from University of Wyoming, and has spent her career as a trial attorney. Good morning, Representative Hageman.
Well, it's wonderful to be on your program. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being available to talk with us.
Yes.
It's good for local people to hear from their elected representatives, and with you doing an appearance April 26th and 27th in Worland, this seemed like a good time to check in with you. So first and foremost, give us the details about your town hall in Worland on the 27th.
Well, it's next Saturday, and I believe it's at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I don't remember exactly where it is at this point. There's so much going on back here. I was in Worland just a couple of weeks ago as well. We did a town hall in Grable, but I had several meetings in the Worland area. I love that area. As many people know, I've spent quite a bit of time up there as I had a lawsuit involving the EPA several years ago. So Worland's kind of a hometown to me, I guess I'd say.
Well, we wanted to talk about kind of the town hall meetings in general. So that's the key, is for people to get ready to hear from you. But what kinds of things are the major issues for the U.S. and for Wyoming that come up in your town hall meetings right now?
So when I ran for office, I made a promise that I would return to Wyoming and go hold a town hall in every county every year. And I accomplished that last year by the end of June. This year, I'll probably accomplish it maybe by the end of July, as things have been pretty busy back here in Washington, D.C. But I also have lots of other meetings and events and things. But the town halls to me are special. I spend about 20 minutes kind of giving an overview of what's been going on in DC, what's happening with my district offices as well. And then I open it up to questions so that the people of Wyoming can engage with me really on kind of a one-on-one basis. The biggest issue that I've been hearing about for months and months and months and months and months is the border. People are terribly frightened by what's going on the border, and frankly, they should be. I have had 3 visits to the border over the last year, one in Yuma, one in Eagle Pass, Texas, and another one in the Tucson sector. And I can tell you that it's not just a crisis, it's a catastrophe. It is it's inhumane. It is 10 to 11 million illegals have crossed that border in the last 3+ years since Joe Biden has been in office. It's creating housing problems, money problems. It's creating problems for our cities. Crime has increased, fentanyl, drug overdoses. Drug overdoses with fentanyl is now the #1 killer of people between 20 and 45 years old. We're at war with the people who are smuggling people into our country, and it is just absolutely one of the most concerning issues that we have. The problem that we have is that right now our leadership back here in Washington, D.C. is not taking it seriously, and they're not addressing it. It's very frustrating to be here. Everyone agrees that we've got a crisis and it should be addressed, but there just doesn't seem to be the political will to do what we need to do on the Republican side. And on the Democrat side, they apparently support the invasion.
People can sometimes be frustrated by politics being played that impact national security and impact our livelihood as citizens. So is there a strategy that can get past the politics and actually hold people accountable when they're doing something that violates the integrity of the country like this?
So H.R. 2 is the bill that the House of Representatives passed approximately a year ago. And I have talked to a variety of law enforcement personnel, sheriffs that are affected by this, as well as Border Patrol. And they say it is the very best bill that they have ever seen come out of Congress. It actually does address border. And a lot of people try to conflate or make immigration and border the same thing. They're not the same thing. Border security is different than immigration reform. And while we need both, it is absolutely imperative that we get control of the border before we ever talk about the immigration side of things. Right now, Mayorkas and Biden are violating the law, and the law very clearly in 2 areas. And very clearly, one of them is that you cannot do mass parole. Under the parole statute, it must be done on a case-by-case basis and for humanitarian reasons. And here's an example. Let's say a family unit crossed the border illegally and the little boy needs to go to the hospital. They can temporarily parole the mom and dad into the country to go to the hospital with the little boy, but then they have to come back and go into custody. And they can't, but Biden and Mayorkas have been mass paroling tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Cuba, from a variety of countries. And then the other one is the catch and release program, as illegal as all get out. And the reason I say that is even for those folks who are claiming asylum, under our statutes, they are required to be detained while their claim of asylum is being resolved. So they either have to stay in their country of origin or they have to be detained by the Border Patrol. And neither of those things are happening. Again, we have a catch and release program. I think that there are ways to resolve this. But again, the politics has made it impossible for us to actually implement border security. And it is a travesty and a tragedy for our country.
Well, I know you're not surprised by what's happened with Mayorkas, but is there any kind of way to move beyond the failure of the Senate to do what they should have done?
You know, what I would say to that is that elections matter. And the thing about Mayorkas is that someone needs to be held accountable for the disaster that has been created in our country. And he is the person who is tasked with defending the homeland. He is the head of the Department of Homeland Security. And he and Joe Biden have made conscious decisions to not only ignore the law, but intentionally violate the law. And I'm terribly troubled that the Senate refused to allow us to conduct a hearing to demonstrate that to the American public. This is the first time in the history of our country that the Senate has refused to hold a trial when someone has been impeached in the House, and it is a sad day for America.
Well, I know you're busy there in DC and you're going to get a chance with your visit to Worland to talk to people about maybe more issues than we can address here. But what are a few of the what's one other major kind of thing that's on people's minds right now?
Well, energy security and making sure that we can protect our energy industry and fighting back against the energy poverty policies of this administration. This administration and folks, the UN and folks like that, they want to talk about this energy transition and moving away from oil and gas and coal. And it's such an utter absurdity to even be talking about that. We need more energy, not less. We shouldn't be talking about a transition. We should be talking about addition. We need to be talking about how do we make sure that we have sufficient energy to run our businesses, to be able to have lights in our schools, run our hospitals, be able to operate our industrial factories. And we have a real war right now on affordable and reliable energy. And we're now seeing that our Rocky Mountain Power has come out and they're going to try to do another run at a 12 to 20% increase in folks' rates, even though it was just last year that the Public Service Commission went through their files and only gave them an 8% rate, but they're going at it again, the Rocky Mountain Power. This is an example. These are the consequences of failed energy policy. And we as the American citizens, the ones who actually run this government, need to be pushing back on that. So energy security is a big issue, and it's one that I fight on a lot back here.
And then what about one other major one?
I would say just what the debt and deficit. We are $34 trillion in debt. The budget, or the deficit, the debt increases by $1 trillion every 6 months. It is increasing exponentially. And one of the reasons why we're seeing these crises occur almost on a daily basis, whether it is the crisis of whether we should be spending the supplemental money, sending money to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan and other things, is because we have such little flexibility available to us in terms of budgeting and money because we are so deeply in debt. We know that printing money and monetary policy is a bad idea. It's part of why we see the inflation that we have, that and failed energy policy. But the debt and deficit is something that we absolutely are going to have to address. And right now, we're in the battle of our lives. This issue of whether we're going to be spending another $100 billion. So those are the big issues right now.
Besides voting, how can people do things to reach out to you, to ask about challenging issues? what's the best way for constituents to communicate with you?
To reach out to my district offices. I have district offices in Casper and Cheyenne, and they can also call right here in Washington, D.C. I am going to have to go vote. So I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, and I look forward to seeing folks in Worland and Thermopolis and other areas in central Wyoming next week.
Well, I know you're busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to have the conversation, and we appreciate what you're doing for Wyoming there in DC.
Thank you.
Talking with Harriet Hageman, the U.S. Representative for Wyoming, here on Daybreak on KWOR. I'm Tony DeMars.